Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. We have some things to chat about today. And of course, I'm here to answer any and all questions. As always, we're going to take a more general approach. And then in our downtime, we'll be talking a little bit about Google. Is it still your dream company? And kind of focusing in on that as the conversational item. As I've mentioned, kind of throughout 2023, things have slowed down quite a bit. And so I'm coming into these live streams kind of open and fresh, like usually back in the day. There were a lot of questions waiting for me when I came into these streams, so we could dive right in. But again, just been a little bit slower this year, which is all good. So, um, as people hop onto the stream, please say hello, tell me where you're visiting from, etc., and we will dive in and get started. So before we do, let's highlight a couple of items that I just want to chat about really quickly, and then again we'll dive into any questions, anything that's going on. So yesterday, whenever I do my every other Monday video, I just want to reference it for just a moment. The biggest challenge that I see with any interview answer is not having a specific system or process in place. Watch yesterday's video. That template is available at practiceinterviews.com under the free resources section. We want to create a system. And so if we create a great system for answering interview questions, it's just going to remove all the ambiguity. It's like, well, what should I say here? And what should I say here? Yesterday's video will literally outline every single sentence you should say throughout your entire answer. It's just going to be critical for success. I also do have that document for open-ended questions too. Also, practiceinterviews.com under free resources. Follow a system. The system is going to be the best way. And this is where I think a lot of the other advice, just, it's not to be too critical, but maybe a little critical in that there is no system. It's like, okay, well, present your situation or task, present the problem, present the actions, present the results. Watch that video. It's going to take you through the exact sentences, the exact steps you need to take. As always, what I like to comment on is my videos, the newer stuff is the best stuff. Why? Because I'm fortunate enough to work with clients globally, and I get better. Every time I talk with somebody, I get better. There's a little bit more ideation. It's just a continual repetition. And that's something you're going to want to do in your prep and practice. Okay. I know that's a lot. I want to kind of get diving in here pretty quickly. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. We have tons of free resources. Join our Slack community in the Ask Me Anything category. We have about 4,000 members. It's free. I have 9 killer free resources also at practiceinterviews.com. I have an interview mastery course, great for people who like self-study. I have one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday. I will not be going live next Tuesday. I'll be on vacation. So I'm going to take next Tuesday off. I'll put that in the YouTube community comments for anybody on YouTube just to remind people. And then I'll be back the following week with a new content video and a new live. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Let's dive in. And again, in the slow, sleepy times today, we'll be talking a little bit about Google. Is it your dream company? And just I'll be throwing some things out there for you to consider. Hi, thanks for being here. Oh boy, London. Everybody knows I'll go down that path of London, one of my absolute favorite cities in the world. And if you don't know my story, I tried on 3 separate occasions to transfer from the Bay to London. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't meant to be, but I wish I had because I love London, one of my favorite cities. I don't know. Should it be? Is that maybe a reference to is Google still your dream company? Not for everybody, right? So it should be in the sense that I think there's good reasons to think of Google as a dream company. One, the brand is priceless. What it will do for the rest of your career, the rest of your life is absolutely priceless. And then, hey, if you want to learn a ton and make money, then yeah, Yeah, it should be on your list, but again, it's not for everybody. From Indonesia and watch all your videos. Awesome. I know the timing of this live may not be ideal, but thank you so much for being here. Jersey. Mom grew up in Jersey City. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Atlanta. Amazing. Washington. Awesome. Okay. Is Google doing in-person interviews for remote roles? No, they're really not doing any in-person interviews from what I know. I haven't really seen that. Sometimes there's like some informal coffee meetings or some of that going on, but everything is still being done virtually, and we'll see. I think it's just an interesting conversation piece, right? Like, are we ever going to really go back to in-person interviews? And so there's some benefits of being in person. There's some disadvantages. The benefits are we're humans. We're made up of energy. We have an exchange of energy when we talk to other people. Believe it or not, that's an actual factual thing. It's scientific. So we do give up something from an energy perspective, but the virtual interviews, we don't have the stress of actually getting to the building where we're going. We can utilize a cheat sheet. We can wear pajama pants, right? So I think there's some benefits and disadvantages on both sides, but I don't know. There's a push to get back into the office, but are we ever going to see that fully? Probably not. So I think we'll be in a virtual interview environment for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. Hi, I still dream of Google. Okay. I had a position open in Mexico City and was selected, but no offer given. Then they closed it. Found a good job now, but left me wondering. So much of like the positions opening and closing, I think it's been really challenging, right? It's been super funky, and Mexico City is a growing office for Google, and obviously it's a great location to work for Google as well. So if you found something, um oh, you found a good job for now. Okay, you found a good job for now. I would just keep the doors open, right? And I would continue to check the job boards. I would stay in touch with your recruiter as long as they're still there, because obviously a lot of them were impacted by the layoffs. But always keep it in mind, just because we took a new job, and especially, one of the items I like to comment on quite a bit is just don't stay too long in a job you're unhappy at. It's something that I have just done multiple times in my career. And so when you're unhappy at a job, start exploring other things. And if Google's one of those companies you want to explore, it's definitely something I recommend. Hey, Raul. Great to see you as well. I hope you're doing fantastic. Thanks for hopping on late. Raul shared a really interesting article about Google and their real estate. So the Mountain View campus, especially like the main campus in Mountain View, Google basically didn't own, but like rented out all the buildings on all the streets within this campus. That happened over time. And now they're going to be opening up a bunch of those buildings for rent, which is really interesting to see them giving up buildings. And then I think a big one for anybody in the Bay Area, specifically in San Jose, will that San Jose project go through? I think it was supposed to have about 10,000 deaths. And for the city of San Jose, I know this is very specific to the Bay, but as somebody who lived in San Jose, specifically downtown where they're going to put that building, San Jose really needs it. Businesses cannot stay in business because the costs are so high, and it's the only city, of the top 10 major cities, it's the only city where more people leave the city to go to work than come in. And so that was going to be a big project for Google to do in San Jose. And so it'll just be really interesting to see what happens, because the cost of real estate in the Bay is so high, and if they actually finish that project or not. I'm so curious. I haven't been back to San Jose in a couple of years, so just kind of curious to see what happens. Hey, your videos are very helpful. Really appreciate your efforts. And of course, I just want anybody who's watching content, and you should watch a lot of content, not just me, because you got to get the lens and perspective and make sure you agree with what I'm saying. But just make sure when you watch content that people are driving massive value for free, right? Like the vast majority of people, 99.9% of the people who consume my content, get it for free, right? And I like to give away everything for free as much as I possibly can, whether that's YouTube. I drive a lot of free content on LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, definitely do it. I'm always trying to drive value as much as I can. Now, I think for anybody who's considering being an entrepreneur, it's a great way to drive business is to give it away for free. But that's the goal. The goal is to just make sure I drive massive amounts of value for the community. Um, and that's more fun for me because it's a way for me to give back. I, oh, hey, Kurt, I always struggle with following a template to come up with good responses. But we're but what works really well is to critique my own answer using the template and improve in that way. So yes, I want you to critique yourself. I think that's great. I think the rigidity of a template is it will just it will bring more repeatable structure to your answers. And so much of having this structure in an interview is it's like the bedrock, it's the foundation. Like when we have a foundational structure and plan going into an interview, that's kind of the biggest game changer. I would say critiquing your own answers is okay, right? But having other people critique your answers is much, much better because if you're just critiquing your own, and I can't say that that's what you're actually doing, but if you just critique your own, then you're not going to get that lens from other people. So, friends, family members, significant other, current, former colleagues, just make sure you're practicing. All us career coaches, anybody who does interview or negotiation coaching, but especially interview coaching, we're all going to tell you the same thing. If you're not practicing with human beings, it's the number one area where people fall down. And the analogy I always like to give is it's shooting free throws, right? Like the more free throws you shoot, the better free throw shooter you're going to be. The more you practice with other human beings, other people, just the better you're going to get. Repetition, while it can sometimes feel daunting, monotonous, etc., repetition is absolutely going to be your key to success in anything in life. Hi, thanks for visiting. I know it's getting pretty late there, so thanks for being here. I have a recruiting screening coming up soon. How can I stand out in my recruiter screening as the perfect candidate for my future role? I'm really excited about this particular position. So you're already taking step one, which is coming into that conversation with excitement and enthusiasm. Recruiters enjoy talking to people who are excited. If there's no excitement, it's just going to leave something to be desired. Now, for most recruiter screens, the vast majority of them are going to be very basic and simplistic. So, as your recruiter, what I would be looking for is just a couple of things, a few things. I want to make sure you're on time. You're not on time. You don't respect my time as a recruiter. And I had multiple people say, "Oh, sorry, I'm late, but you're just the recruiter screen." That was a huge downtick, and I could make decisions on whether I moved forward with somebody. Secondarily, your communication skills, your ability to be concise and clear is also going to be critical. I want to know that I'm going to put somebody into the interviews that can communicate. I may have a couple of role specific questions, but it's not going to be anything that's going to be overwhelming. Those might be questions that I ask the hiring manager to ask potential candidates, etc. But just show up on time, be friendly and kind, ask great questions. What does the process look like? Why are they hiring for the role? What's your preferred method of communication? Those are just a few of the questions I would be asking the recruiter. But yeah, that shouldn't really be a stressful part of the process. But if you're getting into the recruiter screen, obviously, I want you to be prepping and practicing like crazy to get ready for the interviews. Google only allows for 3 applications at a time. How to determine if the position I'm applying for is relevant and a true open position? If it's open, right? Can I guarantee that they're not far along the process with applicants? Can I guarantee that that position won't go away because of some internal restructuring, which we've seen a lot of over the last year or so, especially since the freeze, positions becoming opening and closing. So I can't guarantee any of that. Um, but the relevancy piece is something that you can control. You are going to be able to determine whether it's relevant or not. You're going to look at those key skills that the job wants. And hey, if you're not really sure how the job is reading, copy and paste it, throw it into Chat GPT and say, hey, what are the top 5 skills needed for this job? If you have all 5 of those skills, or you're pretty close, or you're excited about those skills, that's going to be the relevancy item. But yeah, 3 positions at a time. I think it's like 3 positions per month or something like that, which was a really good new system that they introduced a few years ago because people were just applying to hundreds of roles and there was no relevancy, and it was just kind of, it was flooding the system with a lot of crap basically. So just really think about what are the roles that get you excited, and that's going to be the most important part. But the person who's going to understand the relevancy the most is going to be you. All the other stuff 100% outside of your control. Is it a must to have referrals on applying for a role? Is it a waste of time if I just cold apply and message the HM on LinkedIn? I don't have any close contact at Google. So it's absolutely not a must to have referrals. You do not have to have referrals. Now, like, referrals when applying help because there's a little bit of an escalation. But do people get hired by applying without a referral? Yes. Um, Messaging the hiring manager on LinkedIn. Let's talk a little bit about this. Okay. So, messaging the hiring manager on LinkedIn, I might take that as my first step, but I have a very specific approach to reaching out on LinkedIn. Now, you're hitting up the hiring manager, which is my strong preferred method of communication, meaning I don't like reaching out to recruiters. You'll rarely hear back from them, but let's flip the script a little bit. And if you've been here before, you've probably heard this from me a million times. If you are going to network with somebody on LinkedIn, don't ask them for anything. Give first. Be different. Everybody asks for something on LinkedIn. They want something. They're asking for something from you. So you could reach out to the hiring manager and say, hey, Sue, came across this really cool article on artificial intelligence that's related to your industry and your role. Just wanted to share it with you. Hope to connect with you. And that's it. That give model will work. It is a slower burn, right? So it's going to take a longer amount of time to see results from that strategy, but everybody just asks you for something on LinkedIn. And trust me, nobody sees that more than I do. Now, I'm also fortunate where a lot of people provide me with really positive feedback on LinkedIn. So it's not a 99%, but 90% of what comes in is just asking me for something. So flip the script a little bit and just try and give. It's just a recommendation. Try it out. Worst case scenario, you don't like it and you go back to reaching out to hiring managers, applying online. But I like networking with a giving approach. Yes, I'm not sure what the yes is in response to, but if it's a must-have referrals, it's not a, you don't have to. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. Are you have a suggestion such as to book a practice case study from Google? I may have you re-ask that question. You can book a practice interview with me to do a case study for Google, but you know, obviously my default recommendation is that everybody just practices with somebody. Now, on the case study side of things, it can be really valuable to practice because typically when we're going into these case study interviews, we're going to have knowledge in some area. A very common one would be like GCP, for example. You're going to have to do a GCP case study and you want to know the ins and outs of how you might build up a business, let's say like a brick and mortar business going online. That's a common question for a technical account manager for GCP, for example. I hope that helps. If that does not answer your question, please let me know and come back and ask again. Thank you. Real estate consolidation is one of Google's OKRs. So that's going to be a major focus this year and onwards. Yeah, and so I think it will be interesting because there absolutely is a split, right? Like Google has done some major real estate construction, but like on their main campus, a lot of those buildings are rented and leased and refurbished. So they could just start dumping all those buildings, but they made major investments in some really big builds, a lot of big builds in the US. I don't know what it's going to look like in India, but anything that they built, they're attached to. There are a lot of big buildings that they built in Sunnyvale, especially in the Bay. Um, but I think even like lease space in like San Francisco, they can dump all that stuff. So anything leased, yeah, probably could be a good opportunity for them to dump some real estate space because the cost must be like overwhelming. Yeah, thanks for being here. Please let me know if you have any questions. For companies that ask, what do you want to say to the HM, or why do you want to work here? What should we add? What do you want to say to the hiring manager? That's okay. Okay, so that's an uncommon question, but why do you want to work here? I did do a video on this. I did a why Google video on YouTube. So just look up why Google. I should be one of the first videos that hits for that. But what I really like with the what I would call common and especially common warm up questions is two things. One, this has got to be a 1 minute or less answer. Why? Because that's going to show your ability to stay concise and on point. When people go on and on with these warm up questions, it's tough. So stick to 1 minute. So if we're talking about why do you want to work here, I like the rule of three. So I talk about something that's personal, I talk about something that's company related, and I talk about something that's position specific. That's my rule of three. I focus for about 20 seconds on each one of those items, and that gets me to my 1 minute answer. And that is my strong recommendation. Whatever you do, don't go over a minute. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here, etc. Those should be 1 minute or less. They're warm up softball questions, and we need to move on so we can get into the interviews. I hope that helps. Please let me know if you have other questions about that type of question. Is New York or Mountain View office better? How is Atlanta office like? It depends. So let's talk about it. Mountain View is more of an open campus, right? Like, especially if you're on main campus in Mountain View, maybe you're hopping on a bike and you're biking from one place to another, which you can pretty much do year round. I mean, you might have a rainy day here or there, but that's kind of the fun of the Mountain View campus is you can go to building and you can go work from a number of different buildings. Obviously, New York is incredibly urban, but the New York buildings are really fun too, really big, beautiful. They've done some really good work in New York. So that's going to be kind of more of like a town setting versus a very urban setting. um, I will say before we get on to Atlanta, in New York, this is, people might think I'm crazy, but it's actually easier to afford the New York area than it is in the Bay, because in New York, you can actually get away from the money way quicker than you can in the Bay. You go any direction in the Bay and you're going to pay a ton. In New York, you can move over into like parts of North Jersey, take the path into the city. And so there's more opportunities to save money working out of New York, which just, again, when I say it, it sounds crazy, but it's actually the truth. I don't know a lot about the Atlanta market or office other than it's been growing for years. It's great to kind of have a hub in the Southeast, and kind of Atlanta functions as that. So that's great. I know they're expanding in some other areas, but really Atlanta's kind of the bigger market down in the Southeast. So I've never been to that office, so I can't speak to it, but I do get a lot of clients for the Atlanta office. What career path to go into tech would you recommend for a philosophy major? Interesting. So philosophy is like a lot of questioning and perspective. And so, one area is you might want to think about program or project management. That's a lot of asking great questions. So that could be a good role. Sales could be a good role. Again, I think about philosophy as like questioning everything and bringing in a different lens and approach. So I think those would be two interesting positions. Now, those are going into tech, but they're non-technical roles. To actually move over into more of a technical role, you need some sort of other training, education outside of philosophy. I hope that helps. If you have more questions, let me know. Hey, pass the team match and start at GCP next week. Awesome. Your content was invaluable for getting me to the stage. Thanks for all your insights and for the tips on being gracious and kind. Amazing. First of all, congratulations. We had like a live session last year where we got like 20 of these. Sometimes we'll go through full live sessions this year without any. So thank you so much for coming in, letting us know, because I love the gratitude piece and I love it when people show up. It's like you're already done. You've probably maybe listened to me a little too much, seen my face a little too much. And it's like, I'm done with Jeff. But thank you so much for the graciousness, kindness, gratitude. Look, I did a poll on LinkedIn and it was like, does graciousness and kindness matter in the interview and negotiation process? And about half of people didn't think it's that important. I mean, it's unbelievable. It is critical to your success to be gracious and kind throughout the process. Why? Because recruiters, interviewers, comp analysts, all those people, now you're not going to interact directly with a comp analyst, of course, but if you're gracious and kind, you will get more of what you want. Well, think about it from like a family member or friend perspective. We do more for those who are gracious and kind to us, period, in life, right? So be gracious and kind throughout the process. It will really help. Being gracious and kind in the negotiation process typically will get you tens of thousands of dollars more per year, especially with a company like Google. Congrats. Apple is 100% hiring at the moment, right? And so go look at their jobs board. They're definitely hiring. I've had a number of recent negotiation clients for Apple. So they're absolutely hiring. Just remember, if we were to take a snapshot, if we did a snapshot of all the openings in big tech in June of 2022 versus June of 2023, you're going to see about only a fourth of the openings that you would have seen last year. So these companies are still hiring. It's just at a much smaller scale. And by the way, that's the future. They're never going to go 4x on these openings. It's never going to happen again. These companies are just going to get leaner and leaner. I don't think over time these company employee numbers are going to go up. They're going to go down because roles are going to start to be replaced by AI. And we haven't really talked a lot about AI today yet, but I'm happy to answer any questions or any of my thoughts around that topic. In terms of interviewing strategy, what would be my best approach when I have my initial interview with the HM, but he or she appears frustrated, disinterested in speaking with me? So, okay, let's talk about a bold move here. Sometimes, and this, look, I've never actually used this technique, so that's kind of my like disclaimer. But the reality is if we get into any interview with anybody who appears frustrated or disinterested, we stop. Okay, so let's go to my favorite fake interviewer, Sue. We say, Sue, I just want to pause for a moment. I want to make sure that I'm building a very strong connection with you. And it just appears from your body language that I'm not doing a good job of making that connection. So let me pause. Is there something you would like to change in my approach? Is there something that I can be doing differently to make a stronger connection with you? And why do this? Because you have absolutely nothing to lose at this point. If you're 20 minutes into the conversation and they're totally disinterested and frustrated, you have to break it up. You have to switch it up. Otherwise, it's already over. They have this negative first impression of you. They're carrying it through the interview. So what are you going to lose? You've already lost the job. If they're totally disinterested and frustrated when speaking to you, you have to flip the script. It is what would appear to be risky advice, I think the bigger risk is doing nothing and trying to just battle through it. Again, that's for somebody who's very disinterested, very frustrated. And by the way, if we think that interviewers are going to show up and be this perfect person in the interview, it's just not reality. Interviewers are not incentivized to show up. Now, hiring managers should be, because they're looking to hire the right person, but everybody else, they're half asleep. They're not interested. They're checking their email. They're hungover, whatever they are. That's going to be a challenge, right? So we always need to make sure that all the advice I give is absolutely terrible if we're not connecting with our audience. And I know that sounds very obvious, but don't expect the person on the other side to be excited. You are an interruption, a distraction to their day, and they are not incentivized to be there. It's just a constant thing that we need to remember. We're at the 30s. I'm going to pause for just 30 seconds here. If you visit practiceinterviews.com, you can join our free Slack group. And I have 9 free resources. Check out those free resources. They're really great. I have an interview mastery course. I do one-on-one interview and negotiation coaching, all available at practiceinterviews.com. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific every single Tuesday, and new original content every other Monday. I'm going to be off the live next week, so I'll be back. What is that? June 19th. I'll be back June 19th with a new video, and June 20th with a new live. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Why nowadays recruiters look for everything in a single person, like DevOps, front end, and back end? Are they looking for a developer or a Superman? So yes, they're looking for Superman or Superwoman, because they can. They actually can be a little pickier today, because remember, we're at about a fourth of the openings from a year ago. So that means that there's 4 times as many qualified candidates, and there's people who are laid off from these elite tech companies that you also have to compete with. It's tough, and that's why. So they're going to be a little bit more selective. Does that mean we should stop trying? No. We definitely should be focused in on roles that are going to be a good match for us, whether we really want to double down on DevOps, front end, back end, etc. So if you feel like what's being asked of you is absolutely unreasonable, it's probably not the right role. It may not be that that's the wrong company, but sometimes you'll have the job description, you'll go into that initial recruiter call, and then they'll want 10 other things. Whoever goes into that role, they're going to fail, because the expectations are so much bigger than the job description. And if somebody's being asked to do 3 roles, they're actually being set up to fail coming in the door. So you don't want to put yourself in that scenario. But I think it's just a competition thing. I just think there's a lot of really qualified people out there right now, and there's less openings, at least at the elite tech companies. The job market is actually surprisingly still pretty good, considering the economic landscape globally, but the openings have upticked a little bit. I've seen that over the last couple months, but it's still going to be slow. I hope that helps. How stickler is Google with a typo in the resume? I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you notice a typo in your resume, just resend it to your recruiter. Say, hey, I noticed a typo in my resume. I'd never seen that before. I just want to send you an updated resume with a fixed typo. Should it be clean? Yeah, it should be clean, but just get it fixed up. Resend a new resume to the recruiter and just ask them to add that new resume to your profile. It happens. We can look at our resumes hundreds of times and not catch typos. You can always run it through ChatGPT just to see if there's any mistakes. You can just copy and paste it and see if there's any way to improve it or update it. So lots of opportunities, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just get that updated resume over to your recruiter. I was wondering about Google's global hiring strategy. Are they looking to keep recruitment teams internally, or are they looking to externalize these services? Many thanks. I just don't think that there would be any reason for them to externalize full-time recruiting, because a lot of that recruitment job is not exactly what people think it is, meaning that that actually recruiting and hiring people is it's only a percentage of how recruiters' performance are tracked. Meaning, like, part of it is hiring and hitting your numbers, but other parts of it are project work, improving the overall process, and you're just not going to be able to do that as an external recruiter. So I don't really see a time where they're going to 100% bring everything external. Contract roles are done externally and always have been. So that will continue. And then the bigger debate, and we could go down the slippery slope, is will there be recruiters at all in the coming years? And I think the answer is no. I don't think there will be. A lot of people would argue with that, but I think the recruiter role is pretty close to going away. And I think that it's much closer than people think. I think the recruiter role could be gone in a year or two and completely removed with AI and automation. I actually believe that the specific recruiter role, could be removed today. And the candidate experience scores would probably go up because you can automate pretty much every part of the process. That's just what I think. Not everybody agrees with that, but yeah, I don't see it pushing external. I just think it will go away overall over time. And I think it'll happen quicker than people think. You had a really bad experience with Google Recruitment. After passing your initial technical screen back in October, the recruiter fell off with looking for team matches for me. Okay. I applied for a staff role at Google Cloud and was selected by the team, but had to go through another technical screen for a higher level. Okay. Was informed last Tuesday by the recruiter that the feedback from that screen was excellent. He asked for my availability for an on-site, which I provided same day. Neither the recruiter nor the scheduler have reached out, and the recruiter has not responded to my follow-up email status. Okay, so having a bad experience with the recruiter, I just want to kind of state that that's like pretty common, unfortunately. And that all kind of falls on the training and the follow-up on training and a lot of the leadership, especially at Google, and their inability to train on candidate experience. I think it's a really big missing piece of the puzzle. That's very actually surprising. But let's talk about it. Just give it a little space. From the last time that you followed up, give it a couple days, and then what you're going to do is you're going to follow up and say, hey, I wanted to be proactive and get you some updated availability. Go farther out, give them more availability, really stretch on your availability, and then see what happens, right? And then if all of a sudden you do not hear back, you can use that email. Let me open that up. I made sure that I actually had this email today because I didn't want to mess this up. But if you are not hearing back, especially as a candidate in process at Google, you can use, and I'm sorry, I'm just going in and I'm going to pull this up because this email address was updated. So let's see here. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I had this correct for the group. And of course, when I want to pull something up, everything's gone really, really slow. My Gmail does not want to pull up right now. Okay, let me see here. I got it in my drafts. And this is really slowing things down. I don't know why it's going so slow. There is a really apologize for this. This is really crazy how slow this is. It's Google-candidate-support. So you can email Google-candidate-support@google.com. If you don't hear back like by the end of this week, early next week, use that email address. That goes to an offshore team, and usually you'll hear from your recruiter within 24 hours because they get a notification like, hey, what the heck is going on? Why are you falling down? But just be gracious, be kind, and then again, provide more availability. I hope that helps. I'm sorry to hear that that's your experience. It's unfortunately not uncommon. Hi, Jeff. Do you see a difference in demand for data engineering talent versus ML talent? I think that data eng is like really hot, right? Like anything in the data space is going to be really valuable. And AI ML talent, hey, that's been hot for 10 years, right? It's getting hotter by the moment, of course. But anything in the data, AI, ML space, they're all good spaces, right? So I don't really see a difference in the demand. Anything we can be doing to improve our AI skills or knowledge in that space, obviously, is going to be super valuable moving forward. I know that's not a great answer, but I hope it helps. Hey, Jeff. Apologies. My question for why do you want to work here? What do you want to say to the HM during the application process? Should I use the same answer as my interview? I've literally, um, I've literally never heard that first question. What do you want to say to the hiring manager during the application process? I guess what we can do is we can take that as a tell me about yourself question, and then you can identify three key skills of where there's strong alignment in the role. So if they're like, well, what would you want the hiring manager to know about you? You're going to say, well, I thought about my background, I thought about my skills, and I saw three strong alignments in A, B, and C. All three of those are areas where I have experience, I have skills, I think is strong alignment. This is what I would want the hiring manager to know about me. So it can be three top skills. I literally have never seen that question before, but take it as a tell me about yourself question, because tell me about yourself should be really skill and role aligned, not walking you through their background. That's a different question. If that still does not answer your question, please let me know. I live in New York and confirm you can easily move into the upper side, Brooklyn. Yep, Long Island, Jersey for lower rent and cost of living. Yeah, Alan, and it is crazy to think that, again, I'm highlighting New York as the more affordable option between New York and the Bay, but it's just the reality. It's a little bit easier to escape the money. Yeah, you're going to have a little bit of a commute, but trying to escape the money in the Bay and really get away from it, your commute is going to be overwhelming because you're not going to have that great public transportation that New York and the surrounding metro area has. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. How long do recruiters need to typically find a team after interviewing is done? Last time I had to reach out to know that they couldn't find a team for me. It's there's no exact formula, unfortunately. Yeah, it can take a day, it can take months, and sometimes they never find a team. Uh, what's not what nobody's being told, and what's kind of happening behind the scenes is you may be strong enough to get into the team match phase, but there may be other candidates that have stronger feedback, are more aligned. And so, yeah, they're kind of looking for you for a team, but they have other stronger matches. And that's just kind of not being shared externally, but it's definitely a part of the reality. Now, I can't say because I don't know, but you always want your recruiter working as hard as they can for you. The other piece is to take control. Find roles that are a match, send them the link, send them 3 to 5 bullets for why you're a fit, send your availability to talk and your preferred method of communication. We can always get in front of it. But yeah, there is no magic formula. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, unfortunately. Okay. You haven't heard from your recruiter and he keeps ghosting you. Well, again, it depends if you're in the process. If you are in the process and you're waiting for the next steps, Google candidate support. That's going to be the address that we want to use. That has changed. It's changed like once or twice, but try Google candidate support at google.com. If you are actively in the process, if they're just ghosting and you only had a recruiter screen, you may never hear back. But if you actually have been to real interviews and haven't heard back, that's the likely path that I want you to take. Um, this is unfortunate. Again, this is why I think AI replaces recruiters. What would AI do? AI would never ghost you. I know that this is really tough to hear, but I could take you through all the steps of the process automated. I can even automate the negotiation phase. Now, I think sourcers are more valuable because sourcers could be identifying like really elite premier talent. I'm a fan of removing recruiters because I think we're at a point where the ghosting, the lack of follow up, all those frustrations could be removed. We automate the entire process. I'm sorry to hear that. Try that email address and let me know. Let me know if it works, because there were a couple shifts, and I don't know if that's the most updated one or there was a new updated one. I think that's the most updated one as far as I know. Hey, thanks for being here. You wait a second. Oh, you've cleared the interviews for TPM in Chicago. Then yeah, absolutely. If you've cleared the interviews, you've been told you're moving on to the next step, then definitely use that email address right now and then let us know. And then, of course, that email address doesn't work. Find people on LinkedIn, reach out to them, start poking. Like, we got to take the steps. The ghosting stuff, the fact that anybody gets ghosted now. Remember, when you get ghosted, that is 100% on the recruiter. It is a lack of organizational skills. There's nothing that's coming up in their way that should happen to this. And by the way, if they went out on an emergency or they left, there should be some forwarding person to send it to. If they're on an emergency, they should have some person to forward the information to. Like, nobody should get ghosted anywhere ever. It's just a lack of training, a lack of organization, and the fact that this still happens at these companies is just, it's shocking. It's really shocking. Keep us posted. Applied for Google Digital Business Sales and Marketing Apprenticeship. Finished all the interviews, just waiting on the outcome. Awesome. Keep us posted. Let us know how things go. How do you see Google Bard AI in the interview process? That's a great question. I haven't really thought about that. I have been starting to use Bard a little bit more, because I'm trying to drive towards kind of understanding the high level overview and then having resources to reference. So I would say I was using Bard very sparsely, but like this week I've used Bard multiple times. I'm working on a personal initiative, and so I have used it. What it looks like in the interview process, I'm not sure yet, but I would expect maybe more questions in the interview process of how AI is going to impact the future state of X role and how Bard could help positively impact, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a great question. I haven't thought too much about it. It may just be more of a casual introduction, and then at some point, Bard may be integrated into the interviews. It's really hard to tell, but it's a great question. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. I'm applying for my first senior suite position, non-manager. What should I emphasize during the interview? Well, any suite position, your emphasis is on your strong technical skills, right? That's going to be the vast majority. If you're going into a senior suite position, you're going to need to code. You're going to need to have that good system design experience as well. So you're going to really look at those two items. Remember, if you're interviewing at a company like a Google, they're really going to look at the fundamentals. Now, what you can emphasize during the interview is when you get the soft skills interview, how you're strong at collaborating, supporting others, looking for bugs, whatever it may be. Those are going to be also the critical items. The soft skills for software engineers, a lot of software engineers are getting into these interviews and they can handle the technical components. It's the soft skills components where they fall down. Communication skills are going to become more and more and more important for software engineers, as we see less engineers getting hired with AI. So double down on those communication skills, practice your behavioral answers. The friend, family member, coach like myself, just make sure you're not forgetting about the soft skills. The vast majority of interviews are going to be technical. So you just want to focus in on your tech, but don't forget about the soft skills. I hope that helps. Hi. What is your opinion on apprenticeships? Google has one in London in sales and marketing for 15 months without a degree. I love apprenticeships. I think it's an opportunity to absolutely learn and grow in your career. It's an opportunity to really kind of be proactive and take on work as it comes up, and an opportunity to get a good brand and make some money in that. And if it's in London, of course, London's great. So all sound like great opportunities. My opinion on apprenticeships, internships, they're a great foundational item, and typically people who take on apprenticeships, internships, they have more opportunities in their career. So it's something that I would recommend. Absolutely. Of course, it's really unique to your particular scenario and situation, but something I would recommend. Have there been any movement in L3 SWEs recently? Um, I haven't seen a ton of movement. I don't have the pulse on everything, nor do I don't really keep a strong pulse on like all the internal movements of Google. But I just think it's slower, and it's still slower on the more junior end of hiring. So I haven't seen a major uptick in L3 SWE hiring recently. How technical is the interview for positions such as activation and enablement lead? Any brain teasers? So that's not a technical position. It it would only be a more of like a role related skill. So they're not going to ask you technical questions for a non-technical role. They might ask how you might implement technology to improve upon the role, but you're not going to get technical questions. There are no brain teasers. Those questions have not been asked in 10 years. If you do get any question that feels like a brain teaser, just write it down, and right after the interview, I would share that with your recruiter. They will ask you something random, but it's not meant to be a brain teaser question. If you get a random question, solve it like you're a lead in this role, meaning don't try and solve for it generically. Solve like you're an activation and enablement lead. It's the best piece of advice I can give you. On the hypothetical side, if we're just trying to solve generically, we're going to fall down 100% of the time. If we solve like we're in the role, it's going to really connect with our audience, and you'll have much more success. I hope that helps. Sorry if you've already replied to this. What would be the future of current recruiters? There is no future. That would be my opinion. I think they can be replaced today. The analogy I like to use is I like to use the Waymo analogy. So if you're not familiar with Waymo, you probably are, but Waymo is Google's self-driving car division. If we removed all drivers from the road today, globally, and put this autonomous vehicle on the roads, less deaths, less accident, better traffic flow. 100%, we know that, but we won't do it because some sort of refusal in our mind to actually acknowledge that it's better. It's giving up some control. Same thing with recruiters. What are the top 2 or 3 biggest complaints about recruiters? Number one, hands down, is ghosting. You remove recruiters and you automate the whole process, candidates will never be ghosted ever again. Lack of organization. Also, that would be completely removed. Lack of understanding the process or steps, that could all be outlined and automated. So I think the future of recruiters is in a lot of trouble. I think that there were at least 20, 30, or 40,000 people in talent acquisition laid off from just big tech in the last year or less. Those people will never find jobs that pay as high, and may never find jobs in recruitment ever again. So it's changing. And I think I think it's kind of funny because I think I can say this, right? I've done recruitment for 15 years. I look at all the challenge areas, and I can be tough on recruiters because I have been one, and I have made mistakes in the past, and I learned how to improve on those mistakes and obviously get better at some of this stuff. But um, yeah, I kind of tangent. I hope that helps. Yes. Yeah, NYC is a great office to work in. Really fun part of New York. The deck, the cafe deck at one of those buildings, the taller building, I can't remember, is unbelievable views of New York. It's amazing. What is the purpose of leadership coffee chats after going through the RRK, GCA, and Googliness interviews? They are technically not interviews, but you are still evaluated given prior to the offer. 100%. So, um, interviews don't always allow people to get to really know you. They're really structured, formatted, which is good. They should be consistent and structured as much as possible. But the goal of the coffee chat is to understand, do they actually want to work with you? So, in a coffee chat, be really excited, be really enthusiastic, smile a lot, ask them questions about themselves. So many people go into these conversations and it's me, 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 me. What do you love about the company? What do you love about your role? What do you love about the team? What is the coolest thing that technology and the company are bringing together to present really great opportunities in this role? Just really positive, but ask about them. People like talking about themselves, and the data and science supports that people will like you more if they're talking about themselves. It's the missing piece of the puzzle. But sometimes the interview feedback just isn't enough of a gauge to know if they want you on the team. So just excitement, enthusiasm, and ask about them. Good luck. Hey, Jeff, if I'm candid and really, if you're, hey, now, if you're candid, if I'm candid, oh, sorry, my brain, and really with the automatic survey you get after going through the process, is it useful? I told you I had a bad interview experience and I want to know more about those. You absolutely have to give that feedback. Um, if you want to keep it just a little vague to not like, so they can't recognize that it's you, but no, you need to give that feedback. Absolutely. They do take those surveys seriously. Um, give the feedback. And, all these companies, and I think we're talking about Google here, I think. They need to learn how to improve, and they're not going to do that if you don't give honest and candid feedback. And you're really not going to get dinged for that. So be as candid, open, and honest as possible. Um, I just still find it absolutely shocking that these big organizations don't have a system and process and accountability in place to make the process so seamless. It is unbelievably easy. And if they tell you it's hard, they're just full of it. There are so many things that could be done and systemized to make the candidate experience great. And when interviewers show up and they don't turn their camera on, they're pissed, they're unorganized, they're lazy, they're hungover, they're clearly distracted. Yeah, they just haven't set the right accountability measures in place to make sure that interviewers are showing up. So please leave that feedback. Yeah, it's tough, but we got to do it. You're welcome. My experience with the interviews are generally negative. They either ghost me after a few rounds and or I have to reach out to someone else for a reply. Yeah, and again, that's why I think recruiters could be replaced and replaced easily. And again, if recruiters are watching, they don't like that feedback. The reality is that that job's going to go away, and it's going to go away sooner than a lot of other positions. So recruiters need to be figuring out how to adapt and adjust. Now, are some companies going to take a long time to realize that if they automate it, it's going to be better? Yeah, it's going to take a while, but the number of recruiting openings that will continue to go down, in my opinion. And if companies aren't figuring out how to automate that, they're just wasting money. How are tech skills evaluated for the group product manager position? How do I brush up on my tech? Yeah, so if we're talking group PM, you're probably talking about Google, and they dropped really the hardcore technical requirements because everybody was failing the interviews. That's just what happened. So you don't need to be that technical. It's really not something that they focus in on. What I want you to be more focused in on is like the absolute randomness of it. Some great practice interview questions, tryexponent.com, tryexponent.com. That's going to be a great resource for interview questions and looking at the types of questions that are asked. I love that resource. Steven and his co-founder have done a great job there. We're hitting the hour. So I'm just going to do a 2-second prompt to my services and then we'll get back into it. If this is your first time here, practiceinterviews.com, free resources. Our Slack community is free. There's about 4,000 members, and we're sharing feedback and information on a weekly basis. Get in there and ask questions. 9 free resources on the website as well. I have an interview mastery course. I do one-on-one interview coaching and one-on-one negotiation coaching, all available at practiceinterviews.com. I am going to be going on vacation Thursday through Thursday. You can always message me at Jeff at Practice Interviews if you want to try and squeeze in a session. I might be able to make it work. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. I'm going to be off next Tuesday on vacation, and I'll be back the following week. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. In the process for business development rep for GCP, past GCA, feel like I fumbled a question on the RRK and have the G and L this week. Mentioned a decision is made this Friday. Haven't met the hiring manager yet. Maybe G and L. Maybe not. The hiring manager isn't always a part of the interview process. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And a lot of that's personal decision, but they're not always going to be a part of the interview process. So they may want to do one of those casual coffee chats or informal chats if all the interview feedback comes back well. For the G&L interview, it's all comes down to decision making. Time you had to make a difficult decision, a decision you changed in the past, how you look at collaborating with others to make decisions. It's decision based. So think about examples of where you've had challenging decisions, where you would change your decisions, and then you will get behavioral and hypothetical questions. It's a mix. So be ready for both. In some companies, it is a ding against the applicant if you apply for a lower level role when in the past you have applied and screened for a higher level position. Is this also the case at Google? Well, the question would be why you would be applying for a lower level role. Now, that might be availability, that might be location, it could be a number of factors. Is it a real ding? No, I mean, I might just ask the question in the initial recruiter screen. Hey, like, do you think that this is the right level for you? I don't think it's a huge ding. I mean, if you're really interested in the role, I think it's worth going for. So I wouldn't hold back because of that item. Hey, Jeff, I know we talked last week, but it looks like still waiting for HC to finish before discussing comp. It's been about 4 business days. How long does it usually take? So like one of the craziest things that I'm having a really hard time, Taylor, understanding is like why there's not a absolute specific defined time for when you're going to be in hiring committee. Like there should be no ambiguity there. If they don't know, when they know, they should let you know, hey, you're going to be in hiring committee Thursday at 10 a.m. As soon as that finishes, the latest 11 a.m., I'm going to call you and let you know the result. I mean, that's what I did for 5 straight years at Google. Like this unknowing about hiring committee, I don't know. It feels really strange to me that they wouldn't be able to tell you, but I would just check in. It's okay to follow up and say, hey, is there a specific day and time that I'm going to be going to hiring committee? Just double check if you haven't. Okay. I think I agree with you. I'm an out of work recruiter, LOL, but there's so much administrative work with full cycle that I see this role downgrading to a recruiting coordinator. Recruiting coordinator should be the absolute first position that's eliminated before recruiter. And here's why. A good ATS in 2023 should absolutely be able to do all the scheduling without a coordinator. And that's just about coordinating and collaborating with internal employees to make sure that their calendars are up to date and that basically it should be an ATS or an ATS integration where candidates should be able to go in and pick times that are available on a calendar. You can keep everything scrapped and confidential, but it would just highlight, You could put a number of interviewers in there, etc. I don't think recruiting coordinators are necessary. I don't think they've been necessary for a long time. I think they get removed before recruiters, in my opinion. Should I cold connect with the hiring manager in case of a potential? I think potential goes from a recruiter. Do I even go above them to a VP of sales? Okay, so um, I know this is going to sound strange, but I'm a big proponent in not anticipating a future state. We'll deal with that state once we get to it, but and it's not about like not like of course we're thinking about the future, but not anticipating this negative potential future outcome that may or may not happen. You may have a great recruiter and you never get ghosted and they're completely on top of it. Um, Going above them to the VP of sales or something like that. I mean, no, I absolutely wouldn't do that. Um, if that scenario comes up, let us know in the Slack community, practiceinterviews.com, free resources, our Slack group, it's free. Okay. If that's something ongoing, just let us know. Otherwise, come back at any point in these live sessions and let us know what's going on. But no, I don't want to pre-plan for that yet. If we get into that scenario, we can tackle it and tackle it based on your specific use case. On AI replacing all recruiters, I painfully agree with you. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, we just covered that. Yeah, I think if recruiters are anticipating a future state that's going to be great, it's not. And I think the other challenge for recruiters, especially big tech recruiters, is that the compensation is crazy. And we won't get into what I was compensated at Google, but I mean, I will say, well, I can say at the end of my time at Google, from the role I had previously, I was a corporate recruiter. And then I moved up to the Bay and worked for Google. And by the way, it's obviously pays more, but I was making 4.5 times what I was making at my previous role when I left Google. 4.5 times. So these recruiters who have been laid off, the chances that all of them are going to get paid even close to what they were paid in the past, not likely. And then with the role shifting and going away, that's also going to just be something that everybody's going to need to adjust for. Hey, Susan, pass the loop for a senior TPM in December 2022, and you're still in the team match phase. It's been so slow. Do you know when this should pick up? Um, they have been absolutely hiring TPMs. I don't know what the touch base cadence with your recruiter is, but it may be a good time to touch base because I've had some senior TPM clients coming through, especially in the negotiation phase, which tells me they are hiring. So we want to know a little bit more about the cadence currently with your recruiter. Jeff, great advice. On the recruiter conversation, would you agree that ultimately ghosting reflects negatively on the company that they are hiring for? And if so, shouldn't that incentivize companies to crack down on it or at least have some sort of code of ethics for recruiters? Um, I do think that I do think that okay. So I want to let's talk about this in two different facets because I think it's really important. Does this negatively reflect on the overall company? 100%. They don't get it. They don't understand how bad ghosting is. And the fact that I did a LinkedIn poll and it said that the LinkedIn poll was 87% of people check Glassdoor before, while in job search, interviewing, and deciding to accept a job. And so I did 25 case studies for like 500 million to $2 billion companies. I was still trying to build the corporate side of my business. I did 25 case studies of companies that had horrible Glassdoor reviews, and a lot on the recruiter side was obviously ghosting. None of these companies got back to me. One company did, and then they canceled their appointment with me multiple times, and then they ghosted me. So it does speak negatively on them They don't understand that this stuff is branding and that their brand is being shared externally on multiple platforms in that Glassdoor. People actually do go there quite a bit. They do care about this stuff. It's very, very, very easy stuff. Ghosting is, I mean, look, there's only three things you need to do. I mean, I get crazy about this, as people have seen, but candidates would never get ghosted if their candidates were organized in their applicant tracking system. They had a calendar, an inbox management, a calendar system, and an inbox management email management system. Those three things are so easy. I mean, it's like a fifth grader could do it. But recruiters just, it's about caring. It's about empathy. It's about putting yourself in candidate's shoes. Nobody's too busy to get back to you. That's their job. So I do think it reflects really negatively on these companies, and they don't understand how bad this is for their brand. And hiring and interview strategies and processes and recruiter training, bottom of the barrel. They don't see value in it, but these items are showing up in the form of bad hires. Bad hires typically cost companies millions of dollars per bad hire. So it is a little crazy to think that there's just no lack of care there. Wow, that was really long-winded, but yeah, I'm really passionate about this. I think it's just crazy that these companies don't have it in place. And by the way, Google doesn't do it. They don't do it. Their recruiters ghost all the time. And I see it here. I hear it from my clients, etc. So it's just crazy. What do you think is the ranking in regards to importance, influence on an offer? None. GCAR, KG. That's not the way it works. The most important item, if you're going to be negotiating with Google, there's three things. Don't give any numbers until they want to hire you. That gives you the power. Number two, you anchor like a crazy person. The anchor should be baller. You should go big, big, big in year one. That's two. Third is be gracious and kind. But importance and influence, you crush the GCA interview, are you going to get paid more money than somebody who did pretty good in the GCA interview? No. They're looking at role, level, location. It's only in very unique one-off cases where the role's getting escalated. They're looking at the importance of hire, and you're not going to know that data. So I would just say do those three things and you'll do great. How do you respond to a question like, tell me about a time you handled a project where you didn't have enough time, information, and resources to complete the work? I do the same thing with everybody who asks me a behavioral question. That's up to you, because behavioral questions are something that happen to you. Now, there's always scenarios where we feel a little rushed from a time, information, resources perspective. So what you want to do, tell me about a time you handled it. You're going to instantly outline in the situation and task what were the major challenges. Then after 30 seconds, you're going to talk through the actions you took to work through those timeline challenges, to work through getting that information, to work through the resources. You're going to think about it from a data and collaboration perspective, then a testing and execution perspective, and then launch, presenting, documentation perspective. And then, of course, the results, how you were able to get it all done, and then any numbers you can bring in, and then any repeatability in terms of a process, strategy, relationships. But again, ultimately, that answer is going to be dependent on your personal situation, but those are some of the items I would focus on. Currently working in law enforcement with a BS in security management and some cybersecurity study. Is there any way to translate my physical security and people experiences to any Google roles? Really depends on your interest. Sometimes this question comes in maybe once every 2, 3, 4 lives. We get somebody from law enforcement who's looking to transition into tech. I would just say you have to have some of the relevant skills, right? And then what this can sometimes be is sometimes we translate into a role that's pretty close, some sort of data center security, or something like that, where you can be learning the skills of some of the other roles that may interest you. But ultimately, it's up to you. When I don't know your background and skills, it's kind of hard for me to answer. But security management, some cybersecurity study is not going to be enough to get you a cybersecurity role. So this could even be taking an opportunity to take a step backwards, go into a real like internship, apprenticeship, more junior level role, and start to learn the skills. Um, can be a tough translation, but I would say if you're really interested, also continue on your course study. That's going to be valuable as well. I hope that helps. I know that wasn't a great answer. There's been a 4-month gap in my resume. Does it help or hurt to add freelance work experience that I currently have? You can always add freelance stuff. Um, I don't think a 4-month gap is a big deal. Like, I wouldn't look at that as a big deal. But if you've been doing some freelance work that's really relevant to your industry and space, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you add it? Right? If it shows value and shows consistent learning, I think it's worth putting in there. Hi, Jeff. I interviewed with Google for an AM position. Unfortunately, wasn't selected to move forward. My recruiter told me they would keep my application and interview record in queue. Is there any best practices or tips you could give me for future opportunity at Google or elsewhere? Well, at Google, you should just check in with your recruiter and ask them, hey, I am interested in future roles. If you're going to keep me in the queue, what's your preferred time or timeline to reach out? Should I reach out to you once a quarter, once a month? Get that cadence from them. Get their acceptance to reach out. Because once they've accepted that, it makes it easier for you to reach out. So that's one. Um, Best practices for future opportunities. Yeah, the best practices for future opportunities. If you didn't get selected, it means you've got to continue to work and prep on your interview skills, right? Did you practice with other human beings? Did you do that over and over and over again? Probably not. No, I don't know for sure, right? But the vast majority of people, they're not getting the job because they didn't practice with other human beings. It's the number one thing you can do. You really are not going to have a good baseline of where you stand if you don't practice with somebody else. So that's my strong recommendation to land any role. Double down on the prep, double down on the practice. And like, what's the value of a job at Google? It's not 100K or 200K or 300K. It's priceless because you're going to get that brand, you're going to get that experience, and then there's going to be a desire in the market to hire you for other roles as well. I hope that helps, James. Hey, Jeff, if I reply to the Google survey for the application process for the situation I had a bad interviewer, would that affect the recruiter? Having their positions at risk is rough enough for them. Or future candidates can have that same bad experience you had, and you can not pay it forward, and everybody can have a bad experience, and they can get away with giving a bad experience to everybody. I know that that's really tough. Bad interviewers, bad recruiters, we got to give feedback. We got to call it out. Look, if we're not going to get the job, we got to make sure that somebody else is not getting this negative impact that somebody else is. That's just my 2 cents. I just think it's totally unacceptable. I think that Google really has absolutely no pulse on how bad things are in their process. There's just no pulse there. I think people kind of know the story. I reached out to 2 people in senior leadership at Google, offering free advice of the feedback I had gotten from my thousands of clients who are trying to get into Google, and one said no, not interested, and the other person ghosted me. So they don't seem to care a lot about improving it, and it sucks. It's just I hate to say that, but it's just that's been my personal experience. So we just got to navigate it, and we got to pay it forward when we have that bad experience. So hopefully they can learn and improve. Hopefully. Thank you. And once again, so your interview mastery course is amazing. Once I purchased it, I can access it many times. You will have lifetime access. I will never shut down Kajabi, and if it comes in any form or the world changes in some way, you'll have 100% access to it. But I'm glad you found it valuable. The biggest thing about the course is your ability to double down, get in there, and do the exercises over and over and over again. Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Thank you for everything. Just had a question. Any tips for how to frame G&L answers for a BDR role? Well, on the behavioral side, there's going to be no difference or no change, right? It's on the hypothetical side where you will answer those G&L questions like you're in the role. So if you get a hypothetical question, then you're going to want to not try and solve it like you're trying to solve it generically. Solve like you're in the position. This is the best piece of advice I can give you. It will make things a lot easier. And by the way, I love pre-planned assumptions. You know what's going to happen in the job. You already know the role you're getting hired for. Why not think about some potential scenarios you might face in the job? Write those down on your cheat sheet and be ready to go with those, but solve wearing the hat of the role. Okay, come to the end of questions. If any additional questions roll through, I'm happy to talk about them. I do want to kind of double down. We had a really, really great engagement today. Thank you so much. This was like great question flow, one of the best question flows we've had all year. Just want to double down on, is Google your dream company? You know, anytime we use that dream word, if something is a dream for you, you got to work really hard at it to get there, but don't ever give up on that dream. Now, sometimes you just need to pivot the dream a little bit, but I just don't want you to ever give up. I still think that the brand and the comp and the learnings are all worth working for Google. Should you stay forever? No, probably not. But can you gain so much from working at a company like Google? I do still think you can. I applied at Apple many times, and I asked a friend who's in engineering there to refer me, and still the same result. No one's reached out to me. Any advice or suggestion? Go back to your referral. Go back to that person and say, hey, I need to ask again. Apple's really a company I want to work for, and I'm just not getting any traction. So I just wanted to ask again, would you be willing to refer me to this new role? We got to double down. We got to pressure the people we know. Yeah, it sometimes doesn't feel great, but just push. I would say really try to work through your referral. Can't control whether they'll reach back out or not, but trying to go through the referral is going to yield better success than just applying. It's the best advice I can give you. Okay, Google is still your dream. Yeah, and I think that just know that for any dream company, right? Get in there, get everything you can out of it, but don't stay at any company that doesn't make you happy. Okay, and I think I've been, pretty forthcoming and honest that by the time at the end of my journey at Google, it wasn't my dream company anymore. It was time for me to leave. I didn't want to be a recruiter anymore. I wasn't really enjoying recruiting. I really wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be my own boss. So it stopped being my dream. When I first got that job, I mean, it was a dream. It was very, very surreal, especially because for me, I had never even been on the Google campus. So my first day, I showed up. We had the in-person onboarding. The first day, we had to do a scavenger hunt, and we're biking around on these beach cruisers around main campus because I started by working on main campus for the first couple of years. Very, very surreal. It was dreamlike, and obviously the compensation and the food and the free gyms and all of that was really, really fun. But get in the door, make that money, get the brand. Those things are priceless, especially the brand, but only stay at any company as long as you're happy. Just because it's Google doesn't mean it's going to be happiness for everybody. And we always need to be adapting and adjusting and changing over time. I know, very, very general info. Okay, let's roll into our close. If any last minute questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. At practiceinterviews.com, you can purchase our interview mastery course. I do one-on-one interview and one-on-one negotiation coaching. I'm going to be on vacation starting this Thursday through next Thursday. If you do have a special request and you really want to get coaching from me, reach out to me at jeff@practiceinterviews.com, and I will try to make sure I can fit you in while I'm on vacation. It might be possible. We also have tons of free resources. 9 free downloadable items that are all going to be killer. Join our Slack group. It's free. We have almost 4,000 members in our free community. I'm not going to be going live next week. So I'll be back on, what is today? I'll be back on the 20th and a new original content video on the 19th. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. And I'm going to bounce out. I'm just going to answer any of these last questions. Thanks for being here. What would you say are the top 3 skills for a sales account manager or executive? Thanks. Enjoy your vacay. Sales account manager, I think a strong ability to have strong forecasting, strong collaboration, internal and external, and I don't know, an ability to like really ideate and come up with creative ideas. I'm just spitballing here. You obviously want to really understand goals, data, risks, all that really basic stuff, but heavily collaborative. And don't forget about your internal audience. Sometimes people forget to talk about the internal account strategists, account managers, account executives. They all think client focused. Half of the work that you're going to do is internal. I think that's a critical item as well. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Yes. Again, one of the things that I do when I do these lives, I stand up. I have like some lower back issues from too much weightlifting when I was in my very young days, not as young anymore, but the standing gives me energy. It brings just more pitch and tone to my voice. So if you are physically capable of standing for interviews, it will bring better energy, something to be thinking about. Thank you everybody so much for being here. I will be back in 2 weeks. If you have any critical questions that you want answered in the next couple of weeks, join our Slack community. And obviously, if you do want coaching and you see I'm not available, hit me up. I'm always willing to consider it at jeff@practiceinterviews.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.